today we're going to actually focus in on business licenses and insurance. So these are, if you were here in the beginning, you'll know that this is not a very fun topic, and I'm trying to make it as fun as I can, but it's an important topic, and I don't want to take anything for granted in terms of things that could be hindering people from starting their business. So what we're going to do is take some notes, right? And one of the things we're going to do when we take some notes is we're going to, let's see here, we're going to do a new share, and we are going to go to, oh, Shara's going to take control. That's right. So let's talk about business licenses, and Shara's going to take notes as I talk. So what is a business license? All right. So we talked before about forming an LLC. And an LLC, you form at the state level, right? You go to your local Secretary of State or Corporations division, and you say, okay, I need an LLC. And you say, they give you information, you submit your articles of organization, and they give it back to you. And you say, great, I have a business license. Well, yes and no. What they've given you when you get your articles back is basically a license to conduct business in the state and have people recognize you in the state. But the state really doesn't have authority over what happens locally. So what happens is wherever your business is located within the state, and you usually have an address, you're subject to local laws as a business as well. You're subject to your county laws and your city laws. Well, a lot of cities and counties say, hey, great, you have your LLC, that's awesome. But if you're going to open up this shop, right? If you're going to open up this store in our city, you got to comply now with our information. So a lot of times people come across a business license once they get a physical location. So you go to you're walking down the street, you're thinking about opening up a bakery, you see a location, and you talk to the landlord, or you call the number on the sign, right? And you talk to some broker or the landlord, and they tell you the terms of the lease, et cetera. And then they send you a lease, and you start getting excited, like, ooh, I really want to do this. And even if you sign a lease, right? You sign a lease, yes, Dave Walker moving into this space to build a bakery. Once you open the door to that bakery and get a key, you're now subject to the city laws on business ownership. And so there's some person in the city that comes by and says, hey, I see that your business is open. Let me see your business license. So you're like, well, the landlord didn't say anything about a business license. No one told me about a business license. I found this place, I opened up, I signed a lease, and I have a lease. And they're like, yeah, but you're now subject to, city laws, and you're now subject to city jurisdiction. So I need you to get a business license. And now you say, okay, well, fine. So you go down to the city hall, the county, wherever the subject jurisdiction is, and you say, hey, can I have a business license? Well, what they'll require is they want to make sure that the kind of service you're offering is in line with what they've zoned the property for. Cities have zoning, so you don't have, let's say, a convenience store in the middle of a neighborhood. So you can't just have 123 Main Street with 5 houses, and then house number 3 in the middle is a convenience store or a Walmart. And the reason is, so it's a neighborhood. So you have to have zoning that says, hey, this is what you can build, and this is what is allowed in this area. Well, when you get a lease and you get a physical building or a location, you have to make sure that the services you're offering is zoned for that. You can't put a, amusement park in the middle of a strip mall. So the idea is that the city determines that. So one of the elements of a business license is that the city has to confirm that you're zoned for that. So they might ask you to go to their zoning appeal board. So you're like, wait, I came in here to get a business license. And they may say, well, before you get your license, you got to make sure that you're zoned for this particular business. Another issue that could come up is that your business license might ask you how much money you've been making. And so they might sometimes base your fee for your business license on your revenue, either projected or your past revenue. So they also generate money with that business license, right? They also might be linked to your what's called certificate of occupancy. So if you have a restaurant or you're offering, hairstyling services, or people are going to be coming inside, you might not get a business license because they might decide that, hey, you're zoned for this. That's okay. You've paid your fee. That's okay. But you have to go get a certificate of occupation so that people can come inside. They might actually have the fire department come by and check out your place. So all this stuff leads up to you getting a business license. Different jurisdictions do things certain ways. Some people let you get your business license, but still require you to get that stuff separately. Some people say you can't get your business license until you get those things. But that process varies from city to city, jurisdiction to jurisdiction. In general, however, I would state that if you have a physical property that somebody can see on the street or walk up to, etc., you should get a business license. Where it gets hazy is when you're operating out of your home. So a lot of times people say this, it's like, Dave, I set my LLC up. I'm not leasing any property. I understand that if I lease property, I probably need to go out and get a business license, but I'm working out of my home. Do I need to go get a business license at the city? And that really depends. Some cities will tell you if you're working out of your home, don't bother coming down here, because if you're doing something online or you're working out of your home, no one's going to be able to walk up and knock on your door and go, hey, you operate a business in here, because there's nothing that signals that you are. However, if people are coming to your house, parking next door, parking near your neighbor, you're having traffic in and out of your house, you're probably going to need a business license. And you probably aren't going to know that until your neighbor complains to the city going, hey, he or she is operating a business over there and people are parking in front of my house. There's loud noises or whatever. And then that's when they come in with not the police, but the inspector. And the inspector comes in and the inspector goes, hey, I see that there's people out here. Are you running a business in here? And they go, well, yeah, well, do you have a business license? So some cities, though, will require you to have a business license, even if you don't have traffic. So it's important that you talk to your local municipality about, whether you need a business license if you're an in-home business. For example, Airbnb, that varies tremendously. Airbnb is an in-home business. Well, some jurisdictions don't require you to have a business license to do Airbnb. Some of them do. And I've had a client that actually had that issue, is that they had Airbnb and they had people come in, and for some reason, the city would go through and find the Airbnbs and told them, you need a business license, and literally would not let them allow other people into their house because unless they had a business license. And these was just being a jerk. They'd have an officer outside or have somebody outside watching and not asking people. Now imagine going to an Airbnb and the officer comes up to you going, hey, are you staying here? So that's a big deterrent, and we had to deal with that. But sometimes municipalities still want you to have a business license if you're in your house. I would say in terms of timing, right? In terms of timing, when it comes to getting a business license, don't fret if you don't have one now, and you probably should. It's just a matter of fixing it. Some organizations will say, hey, if you should have had a business license, you'll have to pay a little fine or a little bit extra. Some of them have a forgiveness or amnesty where they say, hey, you know what, it is what it is. We can go forward. But also the business license it doesn't always come up because you're in home or because you have a building. It sometimes comes up in the applications you do, right? If you apply to certain government jobs, if you apply to certain municipal jobs, they'll want you to have a business license even if you're in home. And they'll say, as a condition for you to get into this business, you need to have a business license. So, you'd have to then go in and get a business license and just to apply, even if you normally wouldn't. So you tell them, hey, I don't have a business license because I work from home. And they might say, okay, let's get this done. I just saw how you're typing, Shar. You're typing so fast. I think that you can just hit bullet points.
Okay, let me ask you a question. Say that again about some applications for government and municipalities.
Yeah, government contracts will ask you for a business license, and you might say, well, I have an LLC, and they still want you to have a local business license. For example, City of Atlanta, if you do anything with City of Atlanta, they want a business license. They don't care if you're in home or not. If you apply for certain grants through City of Atlanta or Invest Atlanta, you got to have a business license. And oh, by the way, Invest Atlanta, this is a side note, important side note, has a grant program right now called the Resurgence Grant program, where you get $50,000 awarded to you if your business has sustained losses associated with the COVID-19 pandemic.
And you
So
said that who's having that grant program? What's the name?
Invest Atlanta. It's called the Resurgence Grant Program. But just go to Invest Atlanta, and they're offering 50,000. But one of the conditions is you have to have a business license. And guess what? You had to have had the business license back in February. So those are some of the things that, even though you might have been in home and you might have been affected, you're not eligible because you didn't have a business license. So I tell people that if you feel like this can be a hindrance, go ahead and get it. A lot of people don't want to do it because they don't want to pay the taxes, or the fee. They call it a fee. The taxes fee. I don't know if it matters. It's money you got to pay, so they avoid it. But that's one of the things that you have to consider if you're going to go out and do business with the government, is you probably want to get a local business license, and that's how they validate you and verify you and make sure that you're complying with the standards of their city. So if you're in your home though and you're doing something online and you don't feel like it's ever going to come in play, do you need to get a business license? The answer is not likely, but check your local laws and confirm by calling. I've heard of some municipalities will ask you, "You working from home?" "Yeah." "Okay, just go." And some of them will say, "No, you still need one." So I think you should check, but that's an important part. So that's about business licenses. I think that, again, look at, if you have an outdoor location, if you have an offsite location, you have a lease somewhere, a commercial lease, you need a business license if you have a commercial lease outside your home. In your home, it's, depends. Now, what does that license give you? It doesn't give you anything but the right to pay money into the city. It doesn't give you protection. So if you didn't form an LLC and you got a business license, you still have personal liability protection, meaning that somebody can still come after you personally in that situation. So it doesn't give you that liability protection. It basically just, registers you with the city, and then makes you have to pay taxes. So that's why some people are frustrated. And don't confuse a business license with a business permit, right? So you can have a business license but not have a permit to do business in a particular area. And you find this out with food trucks or outdoor stands. So if you went at home and you sold cookies, and you went at home and you say, "Okay, I'm going to go and get a business license because I sell cookies," and they give you a business license, but then you go out into Grant Park or you go out in the Piedmont Park and you set up a stand to sell cookies, and they go, "Hey, do you have a permit?" You can't show them the business license and say, "Oh, I'm registered in the city and there's a business license so that I can do this." No, that's a permit. That goes back to the original thing I talked about in zoning, is that you have to go to a separate department to get a permit for you to physically be in that location to offer those popsicles or a food truck or things of that nature. And some people will ask, do I have to get a business license in every single city that I do business? Not usually, unless you're physically present in that city. In each of those cities, you might have to. So if you have more than one location in different cities, then yes, you might have to get a business license there. But if you're just like you say you have a plumbing business and you're in Atlanta and you travel out to Gwinnett and things like that, you probably don't need to get a business license in those other areas. But if you have a physical thing like a food truck and you park it into another county or you park it in another city, you might need to get a business license in that city, in that area. So it's something that matters and something to consider. But it varies from region to region. But it has nothing to do with liability protection. It has nothing to do with your LLC and EIN. Some banks have asked for business licenses. Look, when they ask for the business license, you give them the article, but you should not get a business license solely for a bank's purposes. They're overstepping their boundaries, and it depends on who you're talking to at the bank. They don't necessarily understand the differences between an LLC and a business license. So they'll say, "Oh, I need to see your business license," and you might show them your article, and like, "No, I need to see your city's business license." In which case, you're like, I need to talk to an attorney then, because I don't have a city business license, and I don't necessarily think I need to have one to open up a bank account, which you don't.
Hey, David, I have a question for you.
Yes.
So for those people that went out and they acquired a business license because that's what they were told that they had to do. You talked about the fact that a business license does not give you personal liability protection. I know in one of our prior series when we talked about the benefits of an LLC, can you just briefly, take 30 to 60 seconds and explain the personal liability protection that you get from an LLC? And then that's going to be a perfect segue into talking about a commercial liability insurance. So just kind of wanted to highlight the difference between a business license, the LLC protection, and then our segue into our commercial liability insurance.
Sure. It's almost as if you helped me put together the outline. So moving on to the second point of our topic, insurance. When we form the LLC, we get protection, meaning that no one can sue us if our business has an issue or they sue the business unless we personally do something or personally sign a contract that moves it outside of our company. So the LLC provides that sort of protection. But the question is, do you really want that to be the last stand of your business? What do I mean by that? If you form an LLC and you're working in your business and someone sues you and you say, well, God, they can't sue me personally. They can only sue my company, and you can have whatever my company has. You can have the bank accounts, you can have, the cars or the trucks or whatever's in your business. That's not really how businesses work. You don't want to give that up because it's making money. So the next level of protection, even if they can't sue you, is that I don't want my business to lose that stuff, right? You don't want your business to lose that. So you get what's called commercial liability insurance, right? That's different than your homeowner's insurance. It's different than your car insurance. It's different than renter's insurance. And even if you do a home-based business, you still need it. You can't, you say, well, I'm in my house and so I'll just have homeowner's insurance covers me. No, your business is separate than you when you form your LLC. So you have to go get commercial liability insurance. Not all insurance companies that offers you life, home, and auto also offer commercial liability insurance. That's a completely different section. And the word commercial liability insurance is a defined term. It actually means something. So commercial means business, right? And liability is protection. And that's where your business gets protected in insurance. Now, what does that mean? That means if you're operating something, suppose you have a widget and it breaks and it hurts somebody and they sue you, the insurance company will defend the lawsuit, right? Because the insurance company, when you come in, you say, hey, I need commercial liability insurance. They ask you about your business, where you're located, how many employees do you have, how much revenue do you have, what kind of product or service do you offer? And then they offer you insurance for your business. They'll say, okay, based upon this, this is the insurance we can offer, and this is how much you pay. And if you don't like that coverage, you can always just pay for more, right? You can say, that's just the minimum. I want more coverage than that. And so you have to go to an insurance company that offers commercial liability insurance, and not all commercial liability insurance company offer the insurance for your business, right? So I have to go to a special insurance company to insure, let's say, the athlete in the NFL against injury. You have to go to a special insurance company for high value businesses. Then you're dealing with jewels and diamonds, et cetera. So when you talk to the commercial liability broker, the idea is that they're there, that if someone sues you, yeah, you don't have to give up your business. I mean, you don't have to sue you personally, but you also don't want your business to suffer. You want your business to keep going forward. And that's what these insurance companies do. Essentially, they pay for your attorneys, right? They determine that, okay, this was covered under your policy. Someone's suing you, I'll send in the attorneys, and then they can settle and negotiate or whatever they have to do with the other person. And you can keep running your business, and you don't have to worry about losing your car inside your business, or you don't have to worry about losing your business's equipment or anything like that. Your business can keep functioning. So, the LLC is just a baseline, small level of protection between you and your business. But if you care about your business, you want to keep going in your business needs protection as well. And that's where commercial liability insurance comes into play. And people ask, well, how much is it? It's usually not as expensive as you think, but it depends on your business. If you're in a trucking business, it's going to be a little bit higher because of the nature of the risk that you're taking. If you're in a business that's conservative and maybe do online sales or smaller things, or you do a service commercial liability for the service providers is really low, unless you're a professional, unless you're an attorney, in which case you got to have malpractice insurance, or you have professional liability insurance because you're an architect or an accountant. Your insurance might be a little bit higher. So even those occupations have insurance. So even though I have an LLC, I still have to have lawyer insurance. And on top of that, instead of like, oh, okay, you sue me and you can only have my law firm stuff. Good luck with that. No, I don't want that. You want to keep moving. I've never been sued. No one's ever threatened to sue me. I have great malpractice insurance. The thing with an attorney is interesting though. In our business, when insurance, your insurance is low at the beginning, right? You think like, oh, you're a new attorney, your insurance must be high. No, it's very low. And then as you go on, it gets higher. It gets higher and higher and higher the further along you get. You think, why is that? Well, if you think about it, when you're a new attorney, you don't have any clients. So who's going to sue you if you don't have any clients? But as you start to go in your business and you start to get more and more clients and do more and more legal work, the chances of, something happening increases. So that's how that works in our profession. So I tell people that the commercial liability insurance is typically pretty low early on in your business as you start to grow. And as your revenue goes up, it goes up. Now, commercial liability insurance is not to be confused with workers' comp insurance, right? Workers' comp insurance is when your business has insurance to cover your employees in case something happens to them while they're working on the job. And I believe in Georgia, you have to start considering workers' comp insurance after you have 3 employees. And I think it's a requirement after you get 5. So, and again, talk to your local commercial liability insurance broker. But, there's different kinds of insurance, but those are the 2, commercial liability and workers' comp, that come mostly into play with business owners. So, and again, you can talk to certain business brokers around town that'll be able to help you decide what kind of coverage you need. Now, when should you get insurance? When your business is exposing itself to a number of people that you don't feel comfortable that you're covered all the way. So after you get to a certain revenue threshold, or you get to a certain, customer threshold, you should consider it. Do you need it right out of the box? Like, it's just for my LLC, let me run out and get commercial liability insurance. Well, if you get in a building, yeah, you will need it right out of the box, right? If you get in a physical location where, again, you got to get a business license and that, then yeah, you do need to get commercial liability insurance right away. In fact, the landlord will require you to have commercial liability insurance. And the way that, so you say, well, how do people know that I have insurance or not? Like, how does the landlord know if I have insurance, if I agree to it in the lease? Well, in business, you can have people who you want to have insurance. They give you what's called a certificate of insurance. So, for example, Ashara, if you and I are working together, and even if it happens in positivity, right? I have a distributor, and the distributor says, okay, Dave, I want to order truckloads of positivity from you. And they say, okay, sign the contract. And are you insured, Dave? I go, oh, absolutely. And they go, well, I need a certificate of insurance. I actually contact my carrier and say, hey, can you issue to my distributor a certificate of insurance? And they give you a 1-sheet page that says, hey, Star Walker Industries has this level of insurance. And at the bottom of it, they're going to issue you as an insured. So then that customer can take that certificate of insurance and go, okay, put it in their files. And it'll say on that certificate of insurance when it expires too. Now, most good brokers will know who they've issued those to and just send them a new one every year. But having that certificate of insurance is going to be important. So when you apply to something, to a contract or a bid, and you say you have insurance, if you win, they want that certificate of insurance issued in their name so they can say that you have insurance. So, you might sign, and the landlord will ask. The landlord always requires it in their leases, but not all of them ask for it. But some of them will. Some of them says, hey, I want to see that certificate of insurance. And you have to talk to your broker and have them issue it. And if you don't have it, you got to go get that insurance.
So David, I have a question for you. So when the carrier issues that certificate of insurance, it's in a specific person's name and it's non-transferable.
It's in the business's name, correct? The whoever wants the certificate. So if I'm dealing with, let's say, a big company like Cisco, then the certificate of insurance says Star Walker Industries has, this level of insurance, and this certificate of insurance issued to Cisco at the bottom,
Okay. Well, I thought that was a really, really good presentation and very, very concise. And so at this point in time, we just kind of, I think we want to, David, if you want to share your screen and go back to the PowerPoint presentation, I think this is a pretty good time to open up the floor to see if anybody has any questions or any comments or input.
Okay, you stop sharing and I'll add my screen. Okay. So what kind of questions do you have? Listen, I know that this is not something that is easily absorbed. I always try to give people a little bit. I know I talk a little fast, but you can always go back to Facebook Live and you can always go back and look at this video and look at Char's outline. I think the people who have on the Zoom can have access to this the outline afterwards. I'm not sure how we've been doing that.
Yes,
but
that's correct. We're going to be emailing this out to everybody that signed up or registered through Eventbrite to be part of the Zoom call. So everyone will receive it.
Okay, so hopefully today we were able to just kind of touch on those things and get you into a place where you feel comfortable with business licenses and insurance. Again, it's a lot. It's not a very exciting topic, and I'd be surprised if this ranked very high in our most watched videos. But you know, actually, I would not be surprised because it's something that probably people do think about, and they just really don't want to address. But hopefully, this made somebody feel a little bit more comfortable about where they fit with their business license and insurance. But at this time, we'd like to kind of open up the floor, see if anybody has questions from the Zoom, if there's any questions on Facebook, etc., and then we can go from there.
I have a question, David.
Yeah, go ahead, Dean.
Okay. Is there a difference between professional liability and errors and omission, or are there different forms of insurance that we need to think about or ask questions for?
Okay, great. That's a good question. So yes, errors and omission and professional liability insurance are generally considered the same. Errors and omission is the type of professional liability insurance. Mm-hmm. So you usually see that in architects, et cetera, that you have these insurance for people who hold themselves to have a professional license. We usually have, you know, some errors and omissions insurance. But there's also what's called D&O insurance. That's directors and officers insurance. So a lot of times when my clients get asked to sit on a board of a company or get asked to be an advisory board member, I will say, hey, do they have directors and officers insurance? What does that mean? That's the specific insurance separate from general liability insurance that says, hey, if I'm going to serve on your company's board and I'm going to help with some decision makings, I don't want to personally get sued. I know your company has insurance. I know you are covered because it's LLC, but I want to make sure that I'm not going to get sued. And so you go to your insurance broker and add a rider that says, hey, we're going to also cover these directors and officers who are making decisions on behalf of your company. And I tell my clients all the time, do not accept a board seat unless they have directors and officers insurance, because that person may have made decisions that you don't necessarily agree with that could have put you and expose you outside the LLC, so that all of a sudden now you're personally getting sued. Well, if you're on a board and you get sued, you're not going to defend that lawsuit. You don't want to hire your attorneys. You want to make sure that you're covered. So directors and officers insurance is another type of insurance. There's a whole lot of little mini insurance coverages within each business that we can go over. There's life insurance to cover the owners and through what's called a buy-sell agreement, and in case something happens to one owner or another owner. So there's all kind of versions of it. I'm sure there's some insurance brokers listening to this going, ooh, 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 ooh. So this is people may earn a living off of this. I know some great business brokers out there that, you know, will walk you through what insurance coverage you have, but there's a menu of items that you can offer in your business besides the general commercial liability insurance. And again, some people who have a lot of businesses, they personally will have an umbrella insurance that says, hey, I know I have insurance for each of my businesses, but I still want an insurance for me that's even bigger. And so you have an umbrella policy that covers all of your businesses, including yourself. So, I mean, it can get complicated, but to answer your question, yeah, errors and omissions is a type of professional liability insurance.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Sure. No problem.
So
Uh,
David,
any-
I just want to say that, I've been working with you and I've been an entrepreneur for many years now, and I found this to be very informative. I know that we didn't think that this was one of the most exciting subjects, but it was extremely, extremely informative because I don't have a home-based business. I have a virtual business, thank you. And so I don't have a storefront and I don't have a lease, for a commercial property. But what I have learned today is that for professional liability insurance for errors and omissions, that's probably something I really want to look at as a brand strategist, someone who creates content for other
Mhm.
people. That is definitely going to give me an extra layer of protection in addition to my LLC. So thank you. This was very informative for me.
Good. I mean, I think that part of the business owner mindset is to really dig into the cracks of starting a business and come up with topics and things that people don't normally think about. This is intuitive to me, but like I mentioned early on, sometimes that something that's intuitive to you might not be intuitive to other people. So, Shar, I'm glad that found some value in that and understood it. I just think it's just a hard subject to kind of grasp. If you spend a lot of time getting into insurance, you spend a lot of time thinking about a business license, it could absorb, a lot of energy. So I try to tell people, look, just get the business license, get the insurance, and just be over with it. Just, hey, how much is the premium? How much does the business license cost? Just get it, throw it into your files and get back to revenue, as opposed to the analysis or paralysis by analysis that people can go through in this process. So, for you, Shar, that's perfectly right. As you start to get bigger and you start to go out and you start to say, okay, I'm making a little bit more money. Where should I allocate this to create more stability for myself? And one of the things you might consider is, and it's not, I'm not going to put these insurance brokers on blast and say how much it should cost, but I think you would find it fairly reasonable. The only time when the insurance gets unreasonable compared to your practice is actually in construction and roofing. Some of the rates that they charge these roofers and construction people is so outrageous that it sometimes seems impossible for them to even be in the business. You should also know this too. Insurance has the right to audit you. So suppose, Shar, you're like, oh, I'm not doing that much business, and they give you a low premium. Well, at the end of the year, they'll ask for your tax return and audit you. And if they determine that they were actually at more risk than what you put in your application or they can change your premium and send you a bill going, Shar, in 2020, you said you only had one employee and you were doing, 50,000. Well, it turns out you have 4 employees and you were doing 300,000. Therefore, your premium should have been, instead of $1,000 a year, it should have been $5,000 a year, and you owe us $4,000. That happens too. I've had clients who had to fight those kind of things. So just be aware that, the insurance company becomes kind of your partner and your friend, and they want updates all the time so they can issue that certificate of insurance to whoever needs it. But, I would argue that if you're in a place where someone needs a certificate of insurance, you're doing good. I mean, if someone's asking you for a certificate of insurance, you're getting a good contract. You're in a good place. You get a good client. Only good clients ask for that.
Yeah. Dean, I want to ask you a question. Thank you so much for being one of our consistent contributors to the BOM. We really appreciate your loyalty to us. David made a statement before, and it's something that I kind of picked up on, is that instead of worrying about how much I'm spending, why don't I put my focus on how can I make more money? So I was just wondering what your feedback and your input on that was. Was that something that resonated with you, and how do you respond to that thought?
Good question. Academically, I agree 100%. In practice, I think that, it depends on the personality, depends on the business and the business model and how much you're making. If you're making a lot of money or you've got a lot of clients and you're servicing them, it makes sense to allocate less time to some of this back office stuff and, deliberate and hire out somebody to do it. Delegate. On the other hand, if you haven't really got things in place, I think it's important to put time and thought and energy into these things. I mean, I do not have a business license with the city of Atlanta because I did not envision trying to acquire or do business with, governmental agencies, nonprofits. My vision was just to do business with individuals, and that's, kind of where I want to go. But, that point that he raised, that if I had a business license with Atlanta, the city of Atlanta, I might have been eligible to apply for that grant. And Lord knows, I would have loved to apply for that grant. So I'm up here thinking, well, maybe I had a city of license once years ago. I had a small business that the first thing I did was to get a city license instead of like an LLC. I did it backwards. But, I recall it was almost no money at all. And at the end of the year, I wasn't making any money. So it wasn't no taxes on it either. I may just go out and get a city license and park it just for the sake of having it. So that if opportunities come up in the future where I can do business with the city, or, for that matter, do business with some other governmental agency, I can point to that. So I think to answer your question, you always have to, in my opinion, you always have to focus on, what am I doing today and how much revenue is it going to produce? And, the goal would be to let me spend less time on the things that don't generate revenue and more time on the things that do generate revenue. But I also believe that as a business owner, you're fully responsible for the shape, the form, the nature of your company. And, you have to deal with these thoughts and these issues at some point in time. Otherwise, you go into business, you have gapping holes. I think the woman who put together that company that brings together a lot of small Black businesses in Atlanta here to market their wares. I can't think of her name, but I noticed you've been involved with her in the past, David. She made a comment. I was listening to a podcast of hers a couple of weeks ago. She made a comment that, most small businesses are not structured correctly. So that, for example, if they go to a bank to obtain a loan, or if they trying to get some kind of venture capital or equity investment, and the person says, well, give me your books. And when they provide books, you can see that they're paying for Netflix out of the same bank account that they're running the business with. They're not eligible. And she made a comment that you would be amazed at the high percentage of businesses in our community they just don't have the basics in the right place. Right. So 2 thoughts. That's why I support you guys, because I know that you're involved with trying to correct that and you're addressing that issue in our community. And 2, that's just, it seems to me that where there's a need, there's opportunity to provide service. So I hope I answered your question.
You did. I mean, I think one of the most important things that I want to, and I'm doing this right now, really to encourage Dave, because David is like, people don't want to hear the boring stuff. And I'm like, but David, that's part of our challenge as a community, regardless of where we are physically located, or, but as a business owner community, we have to go ahead and put in the work and put in the time to get that structure correctly, because they say, what does it say? What is the saying about opportunity and preparation when they meet? Yeah. So David, what you're trying to help us do is to go ahead and be prepared for when opportunity comes, because when that opportunity comes, then we can't, like you just said with the Invest Atlanta, we can't go back and get a business license now to go ahead.
That's right.
That money. We needed to have been prepared, in order for us to be successful. We have to be prepared. So this way, when the opportunity shows up, then we can go ahead and grow, and then we can go ahead and increase our revenue by having all of the tools in place. You can't go and build a house unless you have all the tools the proper tools in your toolbox. And that's the other things, some people think that, well, I have a business license, but I don't have an LLC. I have an LLC, but I don't have a business license, or I don't have the insurance. Well, depending on where you're located and where you're trying to go, you really need to make sure that you speak to someone like an attorney. And we're going to be getting into an accountant's and tax preparation and all of those things in the next couple of weeks, to make sure that you have all of those things in place so you don't get caught short and you don't get blindsided.
Absolutely. Very good. Very good.
Yeah, thanks for that, Shar and Dean. I think that makes sense. Shar, I think I don't say people don't want to hear that. I think that I think that the idea is that
Boring.
it's boring, correct?
Yeah,
So it's not like, it's not exciting. It's about,
exactly.
I got to pay for a premium. I have to pay for a business license.
Yeah.
So it's just not the, fancy, hey, marketing, branding, make more money website like that. People
Yeah.
love that.
Coming up with new ideas,
Yeah,
inventions.
they love that. They love this. But
Yeah.
I try to say that, this isn't as overwhelming as it seems. To Dean's point, you might just go out and, you're not doing much. The business license process might not, some of them now are moving online. One of the
Yeah,
hardest
yeah.
things, Atlanta, you had to go down there, then they send you over to zoning, and then you had to wait here, and they'll tell you on your website, be prepared to be here for 4 hours. It's like, man, who wants to do that, right? So
No.
nobody wants to do that. So I think the idea is that, I'm trying to make it so that, hey, even if you have to go to a location where you got to kind of grind through it and you lose a half a day of revenue because you're trying to get this business license, it could come in handy and it could come necessary at some point. And once you do it and then you're in their system, you just pay your fee every year. And if you get insurance, and yes, you might sit down to an insurance broker and they're going to give you all these options, but you eventually get an invoice, you eventually get a premium, and then you
Yeah.
throw it in there and you feel good about it. And nothing feels better than applying for that grant and having your license, or
Exactly.
getting in front of a customer and
Exactly.
having that certificate of insurance, and
Exactly.
watching all the competition. Like, hey, get out the
Oh,
way. I'm coming
yeah.
through. I got my license. I got my insurance. And
Yeah.
it feels good about that. So
Absolutely.
we got it over, Shar. We ripped off the Band-Aid. I talked about the boring stuff. That
Well,
was
listen,
good.
I just want to say I really enjoyed, I enjoy all of the bombs, but today I thought we actually got to the point where we are having the conversation, because ultimately that's part of our vision, is to be able to have that dialogue with people and to have people be comfortable to get on here and just have the conversation, talk about the things that they may not be sure about, and, be able to be transparent. So one of the things that I really like, David, is the fact that we don't try to make this perfect. We try to keep it real, because that's what business is about. Malik, thank you for talking about your email box and how it hasn't been working and so on and so forth. Hey, is my mic working better now, David?
Oh, much better, much better. I think you snuck it behind your necklace.
No, I actually disconnected that microphone, and Malik, I did the IT support. I clicked on the audio thing on Zoom, and it was like, do you want to use this, that, or the other? So business isn't perfect, but business is about perseverance.
Yeah.
Business is about not giving up. Business is about saying that I'm going to make this work. And even if it doesn't look perfect to the rest of the world, that's okay, because I'm going to work through all of the kinks, and I'm going to make it better. So listen, everybody, reach out to David Walker. He's Atlanta's Good News business attorney. By signing up through our Zoom call. This is a great opportunity for you just to ask him the question. David charged $395 per hour for a consultation, but he's giving his time and his knowledge away to us as business owners at absolutely no charge. So we just want to make sure that we give you this opportunity to get online. If you're too shy to talk, you can post a comment on our Facebook Live. You can jump into our chat room. You can communicate with us in so many different ways.